Hey guys, it is Marcus and Terry here with you on this Valentine's Day holiday thing, whatever they call it, excuse to sell flowers and steak and rings. Hopefully you guys are doing okay. That's good for us marketers, right? Going a little different today. I haven't gotten my hair cut, so I'm not going to bother making it fancy. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about loneliness and isolation in sobriety. How does that work? So if you guys can hear me okay, and if you can hear Terry okay, let me know by typing something in the box, and we'll get the show on the road here in just a second. Let's see, where's my chat? There we go. Cool.
Good morning, Crystal and Lynn, and hey, Richard, good to see you again. Sounds like we got an echo, Marcus.
A little bit of an echo. All right, let's turn that echo down. Is it on Terry or just me? And tell me if it's better now. Go ahead and say something, Terry.
Hello, everybody, and yeah, looks like we still got the same people so far. Got 14 watching.
Cool. Mine's being slow. It says 2, so we might have the whole world watching. We just don't know it.
Hi, Michael. Teresa from Nova Scotia. Right on.
Cool. All right, so let's dive into the topic. I think this is going to be kind of an open forum type topic. So you guys, if you have anything to share here, let's see, what's our echo? Echo is on the screen. There it is. No, that one's not the echo. Okay, it's an echo here. None of my sounds are on here. Let's see, we got desktop audio, we got mic.
There we go. Is that better?
Hi, Nanu.
Might be better now. Okay. Still echoey? Type echo if I'm still echoey, or better if it's better. Better. All right. We should be okay.
Better.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's dive right in. Hey, Megan. Hey, Nanu, Richard, all the other people hopping on. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about loneliness and isolation in sobriety. This is a topic I know Terry had some experience with when he was drinking towards the end. I don't know if he really cared about it, though, because you were kind of just like, I'm just cool being alone drinking.
Yeah,
which sometimes
the way I preferred it.
Yeah, and sometimes that's where we get, and sometimes that's what happened. Now, for me, with loneliness, I've struggled with it throughout my life, quite a bit during high school and what would be college years, but I didn't go to college, so they were the after high school years for me when I was working. And I dealt with it quite a bit, and I've noticed that a lot of times what we view as loneliness is kind of what society puts on us, like, oh, you're supposed to have a significant other, you're supposed to have a date. And that's kind of why I picked this topic, because I know tonight maybe some of you guys are alone, maybe some of you guys aren't going out, maybe some of you guys are just staying home or whatever it is, or maybe you're in a relationship that makes you feel alone. Oftentimes we can have that, and oftentimes it's a struggle. And I know that a lot of times that can be a trigger to want to drink, to kind of fill the void, drink to kind of feel the warmth of whatever it is you're looking for. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to kind of, bring that up. So if you guys have experience with that, let me know where you guys are at with that. Terry, if you want to share some of your experience maybe throughout your life with loneliness and drinking, isolation, and maybe if loneliness is ever kind of a trigger for you, maybe not to drink, but just to feel bad or something like that.
It's interesting. I think about when I was drinking, and through most of my life I was a heavy drinker, but I wouldn't say that I was necessarily alcoholic. I wasn't getting the negative consequences that drinking causes.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked being alone. I am kind of a loner. I mean, I'm married and I spend lots of time with my wife, but I'm perfectly fine being alone, and I'm not lonely when I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was drinking, that became my priority in life as my drinking escalated, and I wanted to be alone more and more. It was more, I wanted to isolate, and that was just because I didn't want people to know that I was a drunk, and I wanted to drink a lot more than what I felt people would think is healthy. And so as my drinking escalated, I was just isolated more and more. When I got sober, loneliness was an issue that I had to tackle as far as isolation. When I was drinking, even though I did isolate, I did go out. I had my drinking friends that I would meet at bars and things like that.
Mhm.
And I would, well, after I got sober, um, I kind of had to leave those people behind. So all of a sudden, here I am, sober. I have nothing to do. I can't fill my time with drinking. I can't go out with friends. So there I am, sober and kind of lonely.
Yeah.
So I really had to start to do things like I started going to lots of meetings, meeting other sober people,
Mhm.
um, starting to ride my bike a lot. That can be a lonely activity when you ride by yourself, but hooking up with friends and riding my bike a lot, and I have a kind of a dog walking posse that I walk with, and those are the kind of things I did to sort of mellow out that loneliness.
Mhm.
But yeah, that it's loneliness is a big issue, and many alcoholics that I talk to, they definitely isolate and they find they're lonely. They try to fill their time with drinking is what they end up doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I know for me, it was different because working at home, you don't have a lot of like the social interaction. You don't talk to a lot of people other than who's in your house. And now in our day and age, it's funny because even if you live in a house, it's kind of like you live in a little apartment kind of thing, right? Everyone goes in their garages, goes in their house, and you never see them. And it's kind of interesting how our society works out that way. And I know for me, I kind of thrive on social interaction and social energy. But afterwards, I get really, really tired, right? Like I'm exhausted after I go out or something like that. And it's interesting because a lot of times we're looking to fill that need of another person or a relationship we might want or how we think things should be in terms of relationships with other people or a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever it is. And it's difficult because we're looking outside of ourselves to fill what we can't have in ourselves. And for me, it took me about 30, what would it be, like 36 years of my life to actually sit and be okay with me. Like, I don't have to have company. I don't have to read. I don't have to listen to something. I don't have to be thinking about work. I can just sit there and I can be okay spending time with myself. Which is interesting because a lot of times in society we look at it backwards, right? We're looking for an external relationship to make us whole instead of focusing on being whole first and then meeting another whole person and coming together and joining. We're looking for something to fill it. I wish I had a best friend so that I could this. I wish I had this so I could this. And what we don't realize is that a lot of the times it all stems from selfishness. It's selfishness of I want this person so I can have, rather than saying, okay, well, let's see what it's like to be okay with me. What am I really about? What am I really interested in? What am I really? What is my core? What does it say? You know, am I like a giving person? Am I a loving person? And I believe that at all of our cores, we have that love and that acceptance and that ability to be okay with ourselves, but we live out of fear, right? We're living out
Yes.
of fear of I might not have that person. And you see that oftentimes in relationships, and people will go out there and they hold so tight to something that they smother it and it goes out, right? It's like if you try to hold a match or something like that or a fire, it's going to go out eventually the harder you hold on to it. And really, what love is about, what understanding is about, what having friends is about, is giving them the ability to be free, giving them the ability to do what they want. And I look at it all the time where it's like if I really love someone, I should want them to be happiest, even if it means to my unhappiness, right? Not saying like in a weird way, like I hope they're happy so I could be unhappy or whatever. Not that at all. But meaning, like if I am in love with someone and they are happy without me, we should let them go be like if I'm the hindrance. Does that make sense? I hope it
It,
does.
oh, it makes absolute sense. I'm
Okay.
I'm thinking in relation to my wife, and I tell her all the time that I want you to go do things on your own. I want you to enjoy your life, and please don't be worried about if I'm at home or something. Please go take
Yeah.
care of yourself. She needs to be free. She needs to enjoy her life, and if she wants to do something that I'm not invited for or whatever, that's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and it's interesting too because it's like the feeling of loneliness, and oftentimes all of our feelings are like a smoke detector, right? It's a smoke detector, and it's saying beep, beep, beep. Hey, you know what? Maybe you should get some social interaction. Maybe that'll help. You can either go to a meeting and meet some people there. Be careful. Some people are totally cool. Some people not so cool. Like anywhere. You're gonna go outside. You go to the grocery store. There's a guy who's like, okay, don't talk to that dude. Then there's someone who's like, hey, they're pretty cool. So we got to look at it, and we got to be like, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try to interact. And if you want to have friends, be a friend first. If you want to be loved, be loved first. Be the essence of what you're looking for in your life, and it will come to you. Like it's going to, because it's going to attract it, or whatever happens in the world, it's going to attract it to you. And when you look at that, instead of saying, oh, well, you know what, I'm lonely, or I'm sad, or I'm depressed, or a lot of people, I know for me, when I was alone on Valentine's Day, it was like, oh, I'm lonely, And for me, it was difficult because I grew up preconditioned. Like my family, certain people in my family literally sat me down and told me, you are short, therefore no woman will ever want you because you're short. So you're going to have to fight hard for it. And they told me that, and I was like, well, okay. And then I would sit on Valentine's Day and be like, okay, well, I'm a loser and I'm short and no one's ever going to want me. And it was like a self-serving kind of thing. And you can look at that as like, okay, well, do I want to believe what I was preconditioned to believe, or do I want to step outside of it? Right? And a lot of what sobriety is about is stepping outside of what you have culturally, mentally, physically, everything believed in your life, right? You've believed all these things. And now I know for me, and I've seen some with Terry as well, where it shattered that. Sobriety was like, okay, well, I have this smoke detector that's my feelings. And it's saying you're lonely, you're this. Now, I can go down those feelings and wallow and say, yeah, it's because you're too short, you're not good looking, your hair's not cut right, whatever. Or, and what that does is I go drink and I wallow in it, and that shuts the fire alarm off. And I'm like, whatever, fuck it all, I got my drink, I'm good. Because drinking is, drink loves you to be its company. If you're stranded on a desert island, it's going to be there. If you are on an alcoholic desert island, and you're going to be there, and it's like, okay, pick me up. This is all you need. But what it's doing is it's shutting off the smoke detector of the things that you want in your life. And instead of shutting it off, listen to it and go do something that fixes it, right? Because we could either choose to live in fear, which is, hey, let's just let that smoke detector die off. We're not going to pay attention to those things that's going on, and eventually you go downhill, versus going the other way. Does that make sense? You guys getting that?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was, right before I quit drinking, I had been working at this hotel. I was a food purchaser and a liquor purchaser, and I wanted to be drunk. Towards the end, I was a 24-hour-a-day drinker, even at work, and I just I had to shut down those feelings because I wanted to drink. I didn't want anybody to know that I was drinking. I also was in fear. I was afraid that I wasn't doing a good enough job. So I would do everything I could. The liquor room was a locked room where I could go hide out. No one else was allowed inside without security with them because I was in charge of it. I'd go hide there. I'd go take my breaks in my car and sleep because I had to, or pass out basically. Mm-hmm. I'd leave work early and go home and work. It was all about isolating and then becoming lonely and then drinking more. It was a vicious spiral. I drank more to hide those feelings of loneliness, and that's what it did. It just pushed down those feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of comments coming in here. One by THC Gamer, he says, I'm definitely a lot more social when drinking. When sober, I tend to isolate myself to the fullest. Lucky to get a text response from me, just feel alienated. I think what that stems from is living out of fear, and I can relate. I used to hold business meetings, and I thought in my mind I had to get somewhat plastered to be able to run them, because I had so much fear that was saying these people aren't going to like you, this person's not going to want you, this person's going to laugh at you, you're going to get teased, you're going to get whatever. And I was living out of fear rather than saying, well, the same people who like me when I'm drinking, I'm the same person. All that happened was the defenses are now down. So what's happening is we live our life and we wake up and we wake up with these anxieties and these thoughts and these ideas of this person might I shouldn't take that risk. I shouldn't do this. And it's like a filter. Now, it's good to have a filter to some extent because obviously the filter is going to be like, yeah, don't go do something dangerous and crazy, which when you drink, unfortunately, that filter goes out with the other ones too. And a lot of people do really stupid things like drive cars and, jaywalk and things like that. And I've had my fair share of injuries from that as well. But we got to look at it and say, what of these, again, they're like little smoke detectors, right? Don't call that guy an ass or you might get in a fight. That's a good smoke detector. If I go to a guy who's like 7 feet tall and I'm like, dude, you're an ass, I'm going to end up in the hospital, even if he's an ass, right? That's just what's going to happen. So that smoke detector is good. Now, the smoke detector that says you should be anxious when meeting people, right? Like for me, when I go out on interviews, when I'm interviewing people to work for me, I'm probably more anxious than the person being interviewed. But I've learned to sit back and say, well, that's just a natural response that I've been preconditioned to. I'm going to push through it, and I'm going to be myself anyway. And when I do that, I find that the people who like me are going to be the people who like me, right? It's the same thing. Like if you drink, you're the same person. If you think you're funnier when you drink, it's just because your inhibitions are down and you're free to joke. So if you learn how to make those second guesses go away and you just be funny without the anxiety, you are the same person. Like the alcohol doesn't add anything. It's just shutting off all the inhibitions. Like for people who get depressed, I was a big depressed drunk. And when I drank, I got depressed. And what happened was I couldn't get out of the loop, right? Depression was like this. And when I didn't drink, I was like, okay, I'm a little depressed, but I need to get some stuff done. When I drank, I was like, I'm depressed. The world's caving in. We need to drink more because this is miserable. Right. So it just cycle, which is crazy. And that cycle is hell, absolute hell. And we can get out of that. All right, let's take a couple others. We got a lot of comments coming in. I think the topic is a good one for today.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see. There was one towards the beginning. I'm sorry. I'm just scrolling back.
Okay, while you find that, I'll take Megan's here.
Okay.
She says, 10 days sober off alcohol and caffeine. Thanks, Marcus, for suggesting me to try no caffeine. I can't believe how calm I have been sober this time. It is. It's really calming. It's funny because in our society, we all are preconditioned to do something else for anxiety, but we're down in Cokes and caffeine and $50 lattes and whatever, and those are anxiety spikers. I mean, it just is. Now, you might think you need it, and I'm sure Megan found also, after about 10 days, you start to wake up and you're like, wait a minute. So I kind of wake up, and after 15 minutes, even if I drink nothing, right, coffee or anything, just have water or whatnot, I still wake up the same amount. Because I used to think I had to have my coffee, and in 15 minutes, that's what wakes me up. But I actually found out, 15 minutes is what's waking me up, not the coffee. So it's kind of interesting. But I'm glad that that helped you. So that's cool.
I still drink caffeine.
That's all right. To each his own.
Yes.
Lynn B says, I'm addicted to Diet Coke as well. I like Diet Coke. I read a study about it that's like, you shouldn't like it.
They tell you there's all sorts of chemicals in there.
I actually prefer the taste. Maybe I'm just a chemical junkie, hence the alcoholic. I don't know.
So Lynn said towards the beginning, when we first came on, I used to drink socially and then finally ended up drinking at home alone because I would often get in so much trouble. And yeah, absolutely, me too. And I have a friend that's somebody else was mentioning they had 13 years of sobriety on here. And I have a friend that had 13 years of sobriety, and he went out, and that's what he's justifying his drinking now by, I'm not driving, I'm not going anywhere, but he's going down the tubes real quick. And I did that too, as far as I got in trouble with the law and driving and drinking, and so I was fine. I just stopped driving, no big deal. But I kept on drinking, and my drinking got much, much worse. Let's see what else we got here. And then Jason right after that says, yeah, I started hiding it, but of course, once you drink, it seems like drunk texting gets you in trouble. I learned drunk texting, drunk emailing, all that stuff. Well, nowadays, if I have an email or a text that frustrates me, I always pause and wait, and that's a big thing because
Yep.
rather than react to um, a text or an email that angers me, I can pause, think about it, and then respond in a proper way. I usually end up writing a response and I don't send it. And then pretty much 100% of the time, I change the response completely after I've thought about it for a while.
Yep.
And it usually goes a lot better that way.
Absolutely. And it's interesting too because our brains are programmed to respond right away. Like you watch the news, and the news is weird because it's like we're not really getting news; we're just watching people argue. And you watch them argue, and they're like, "Oh, this politician said this," and they argue about it for like 15 minutes, and no one's even getting anywhere. There's no sharing of ideas, and that's kind of how it is in our life, where we're like, "Okay, I feel like if Terry comes to me and is like, 'Hey, dude, you're a dick,' and I'm like, 'Wait a minute, I'm not a dick. What the heck?' I got to respond right away." But the funny thing about it is, I really don't have to. I could be like, "Okay, well, if you think that's totally cool. Maybe I'll respond tomorrow. Wait like 24 hours for a comeback or whatever. If you even decide you want one back after that, because chances are it's going to diffuse it. Chances are it's going to blow over, and a lot of things do blow over. And what I look at is when I was in my drinking, active drinking, I did what I call ride the waves, right? And you'd have the waves, and life goes like this. And it's like, okay, you get in a fight, you lose your job, you do this, you do that. And I would ride the waves to where it was like, yeah, I got a promotion or made a bunch of money. Woohoo, great, celebrate. And then I go down, and it's like, oh, shit, but this sucks, and I got to pay that. Or spouse got in an argument with me, and then I go, boom, we got to get a divorce tomorrow. Boom, spouse is happy today. Yay, we're great. Boom. And I'd ride these waves instead of being like, well, people are going to argue. Things are going to happen in life. Things are going to happen in jobs. And now I'm like, pretty even keel and everything seems okay. And even when someone gets pissed off at work stuff, I don't have to respond. I don't have to get angry. I could just be like, well, that's his bag. He'd probably be pissed off if I wasn't even here. Right? Like, get in line. Next guy in line is probably going to happen. And if we stop riding the waves and start to be like, hey, it's more chill. Let's not drink. Let's not ride those waves. Let's not catastrophize our thinking. Alcoholics have a way of catastrophic thinking. Like, Donald Trump gets in office, the world's going to end. That's an example of how it would work. Or this person. And it's funny because you watch it in politics, and I'll use this as an example, but I'm not going to say my views. So we'll keep politics out, but we'll use it as an example. In politics, you'll see people flip out when a certain person gets in office, or they'll get excited when someone gets in office. And it's like, over the course of my lifetime, not a lot has really changed with the political stuff. It doesn't really. I mean, you pretty much get similar stuff. It's kind of like little bumps in the road. But people seem to look at it like, this is going to be this is going to be that. And they're riding the waves rather than looking at it like, okay, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 5 steps here, looking at it like, hey, this is how life's going. It's going to be okay for the most part, if that resonates with you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Here's another one that I like. Lots of great comments. But Crystal says, in my 4 years of sobriety, I had too many bad thoughts in my head because I had too much time on my hands. It led to my relapse of 7 months, and now 1 month and 3 days sober now. Good job, Crystal, getting sober, especially after you've had some sobriety. It's a difficult thing to do, or it can be a difficult thing to do. And yeah, isolating gets you thinking, and a lot of times those thoughts go in the wrong direction. For me, what I had to do when I first got sober, and what I still do, is I stay busy. I try not to stay too busy, especially when I first got sober. There was a lot of recovery that I had to go through, both physical and mental, but I tried to keep myself reasonably busy. I tried to keep my time occupied. That's why I went to meetings, the 12-step meetings. 12-step programs tell you to be in service, and I did that. I also found things to do, like I've mentioned many times, my cycling and walking my dog, and hanging out with sober people, or hanging out with people that are just not drinking.
Hmm.
and exercise, and that's what tended to work for me, and it kept me out of that bad thought loop, or at least it minimized it. It didn't get rid of it, but the other things are the tools of learning how to deal with the thoughts, and just understanding that the thoughts are just thoughts. That's it. But sitting in isolation, well, it can be difficult to get out of that bad thought loop.
Yeah. And that's what I look at it. I think we talked about it on last week's, where I was talking about how everything is kind of a form of hysteria. You get in a hysteria of one thing and it compounds and you can't see a way out. And that's what causes hysteria. You see people who are like having fits and things is they get in the loop and they don't see a way out because they actually believe it. And there's a school of thought, I think it comes from Eastern thought, where they're basically saying like what you do in life is a role. Like I look at it in America, it's like Marcus Campbell is the internet guy with the talk show. Terry is the chef who does the sober talk show, and we look at these things as what we are rather than roles. And when I look at life as a role, I can sit back and I can laugh and be like, well, I totally believe that. Like I believe that role. I believe that I was that thing, and that was the whole of my existence. And in Eastern thought, it's like, hey, we're not really that. We're all actors. It's all a stage. We're all going through things. And unfortunately, the people that believe their act to the death or the end are usually the ones who end up crazy or drinking or whatever because we believe it so much. And throughout my life, I believed that. I was like, this is me. And a lot of people get hung up on, I am an alcoholic. And it's like, okay, you had trouble with alcohol. You can call it an alcoholic or whatever you want to call it. But it was also just a hysteria. Now, will alcohol probably induce that hysteria again? Yeah, I think my money is on the fact that if I ever drank again, that spiral would start because I'm prone to it. And alcohol does not let me see the way out, right? It puts blinders on and it's like, now you can't see the way out. Now you believe this, right? When you're drinking and a guy's like, you are ugly, you're like, oh man, you believe it and you own it or you fight about it. No, I'm not that. And you see it with children, right? You see kids on the playground. If you've ever hung out with kids, that guy said I'm a jerk, or that guy said I'm a sissy, or whatever. And you look at it and you defend the position because you say, I am not this. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't grow out of that. And we're like, well, I am what society says I am, instead of saying, hey, we don't know. We're just right now I'm playing this part. In 10 years, I might play a different part. But the fact of the matter is I'm me, and all this stuff is external, right? And we can look to ourselves and say, in and of myself, I'm okay. I don't need to have someone else to be lonely or to not be lonely. I don't need to have someone else to complete me. I can be complete in and of myself, and then I can share that with the world.
Right on.
All right, let's see. THC says, hey guys, perfect topic today. 26 days sober. Awesome. I'm glad. I love counting down the days with you guys because it's like, hey,
Yeah.
they're adding up. This is cool.
Good job.
So that's awesome. Did we get Pep
No,
Skins yet?
not yet.
You want to take his?
Sure, almost 5 months sober and definitely have my moments of loneliness. Kind of missing the social aspect of drinking, but at the same time, I remember how drinking was making me insane. So for me, um, I thought I was much more social when I was drinking, even though, as I already explained, I was isolating constantly. And I thought, oh man, my life is just gonna suck when I get sober. I'm not gonna be able to go out. Life's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be boring. All I can do is hang out at home, and that's absolutely opposite. It,
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more social now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was drinking, I thought I was like, if I went to a party, I thought I was super social and super outgoing. I am able to go to parties now. I don't do it that often because I do try to steer away from alcohol. But when I go, I'm much sharper. I
Mm-hmm.
can I can be in a conversation. I'm a lot quicker to answer and a lot quicker thinker. Um, but my social life is much more nowadays that I'm sober, and I've been sober for a little while. But having said that, in early sobriety, I did not go out to the parties or anything like that. And I did miss those people that I hung out with, basically my drinking friends.
Hmm.
And, some of them I really haven't seen since I've gotten sober. But a lot of them I still do things with. I just don't go drinking with them. I don't hang out at bars with them. I go on hikes or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the case with me.
I found it exactly how you described it. When I drank, the friends I had were not really there. I mean, some were, some weren't. Um, but nothing changed. Like when I got sober, nothing really changed in terms of those friends. I actually found out I got new people to talk to, and a lot more honest relationships, which is good because honesty is really what we're after is being authentic and being able to say, hey, I fail, I do this, I struggle, I have a hard time, or I want to drink, or I feel lonely, or something like that. Where, sometimes in our culture, it seems like it's not okay to say that, like it's a weakness or whatever. When really it's like, hey, let's just be honest with each other. Let's really get to the core of what it is, because this is the human condition. So many people struggle with it. So many people have these issues, and there are ways out. And it comes down to focusing on someone else, right? If you want to have a friend, be a friend. Focus on them, listen to them, understand. Not so much getting the quick high of what it is. For me, the quick high is making people laugh. That has always been my go-to. Like, I always like to make people laugh. I get kind of like a little high off of it, and it makes me feel good, accepted, warm, and loved. Right? That's just how it is. I was probably programmed that way as a kid because I was always the funny guy who, like, everyone could be fighting, and I'd make everyone laugh, and then it's like, what the hell were we fighting about again? And it's gotten me out of some sticky situations too, right? And so we look at it, and I get that little high, and instead of going and saying, well, how can I be funny in this situation, which is good. You should always make people laugh. Laughter is good medicine. But instead of focusing on the high, focus on, well, let's actually see what's going on here. Let's actually take this person in. Let's take the time to really absorb this person, really understand them and be with them and be in the moment, not thinking about, oh man, I wonder if they're going to like me or this or that. And you see this with teenagers. It's very difficult for them to be in the moment unless they're doing something like strenuous where they get lost in it, where their identity is wrapped up in like, oh, I wonder if they're going to like me. I wonder if that person's going to desire me or go out with me or whatever, instead of just being like, well, what if I just live me, and whoever wants to date me will date me. Whoever wants to be my friend will be my friend, but I'm going to be me. And I think it's so important to do that because I think deep down in everyone, there's someone likable. If you feel like there's nothing likable of you, it's probably because you're living in fear. You're living in the fear of they're not going to like me, therefore I won't even try. I'm going to think that I'm so unlikable that I'm not even going to try because I can't deal with rejection. And that's really what it stems from. But if you sit here and you're like, hey, Marcus and Terry like me, they talk to me, and they've only met me on the YouTube. So there's a start. Or, someone else does, or whatever it is. Or go to a meeting. I guarantee if you go to an alcohol meeting, you'll probably find someone to talk to if you try. If you sit in the back and act unapproachable, maybe not. But if you try, sit up there, talk to some people, really listen to what the problems happened. If someone shares, go up after and say, hey, man, I like what you had to share. I dealt with that too. What did you think about it? Chances are you're probably going to go get coffee with them. Hopefully you drink decaf. No, just kidding. You don't have to drink decaf. But you'll probably go
That
get
doesn't happen at
coffee
meetings.
I know, they're like, we have to have like extra. It's like it just sludges out, plump, plump, which is cool because they always make it too hot. So I just fill it with half water anyways.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what we want to look at and focus on. All right, let's take a couple others here. Megan says, I've never cared for Valentine's Day, so it doesn't bother me that I'm single this year. That's good. I just give my daughter chocolates and a stuffed animal. That's great.
Sounds good.
And kids are great for Valentine's Day. They actually enjoy it more anyway. So you just got to really look at that and not look at social pressures or anything like that, and be okay with you. Be okay. They'd be like, okay, I'm okay single now. And I used to think, because when my wife and I have trouble, when I used to think catastrophe, I'd be like, okay, I need to leave, but what if I'm out there alone? And I would fear being alone. And now I'm like, I could be alone. It's not a problem. It wouldn't be an issue. I mean, big deal, you know? And then let's see. Lynn says, I'm single too, but it doesn't bother me. I've gotten my heart broken too many times to count, so I prefer to be single. That's another way as well. Just make sure that you're not living in fear, because there are people out there that probably won't break your heart, you know? And you can also reframe the heartbreaking thing, because a lot of people look at it as something that happened to them. This person did this to me. And while that is true to an extent, it's also something that person did, which would probably happen with or without you. Right? If they were with Sally down the road, same thing's probably going to happen. And we got to look at that, and we got to say, okay, well, it's probably not me, or maybe look at you and say, maybe there is something I could change, or maybe I'm living out of fear, or maybe I'm not giving too much, or whatever. But look at it with an open mind rather than this is going to happen again because it happened before. The only thing I know probably will happen again because it happened before is if I drink, I'll probably end up drunk. That's something I've proven to myself a lot of times.
You know, my last couple years of drinking, I was single, and that was because you know, I blamed it on her because it was a giant incident that caused it to happen. But it was my drinking. It was my part was the biggest factor in the situation that happened. And then I got sober, and I was still single for a while, and it was good. I enjoyed being single, and I'm married now, but it just happened. I was not stressing about being single or anything like that. It was just something that happened, and it's good, and I'm happy now. But I was also happy to be single. It was fine either way, and definitely love what I have now, and I'm very blessed to have it. But it, single was it didn't matter to me at that point.
And it's, I think we all need to really come to the point also that when you have someone who's a problem drinker or an alcoholic or whatever we call it, or whatever it is, and I mean, some people, you know, call it whatever. Usually there's other things going on. Oftentimes, like for me, my sense of pride and ego was off the charts, and I drank because that was a protection. Like usually an overinflated ego is because someone has small self-esteem and they're overcompensating, trying to deal with the fear, because they have fear of, wow, what if I'm found out? And one of the things that was big for me, we talked about last week with Caitlin, was the identity. The identity of, this is what I'm trying to hold up, and I'm so afraid that my house of cards is going to fall. Right. That I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to date anyone. I'm not going to see anyone. I'm not going to go reach out to people. I'm just going to look at it and say, boom, this is what's going on. I'm living out of fear rather than living out of love. And fear is usually ego-driven because it's the I want this person to like me. And if they don't, I don't know what I'm going to do. If my spouse left me, I don't know what I'm going to do. If that person said no, they won't go on a date with me, I don't know what I'm going to do. And we take it as rejection for us instead of looking at it as like, well, maybe it's just not right for them, or whatever it is, which is interesting. Okay, let's see if we got any others standing out here. Any standing out to you?
Well, John says isolation and sobriety is a normal process, but beware of it becoming a habit, because isolation can lead to loneliness, which can cause relapse, which, yeah, that hits the nail right on the head. Definitely. For me, I had to make sure that I wasn't isolating too much when I first got sober. That was an important thing, and I still try not to isolate too much. And I just stay out of that habit. So, right on.
Lynn has an interesting one I do want to bring up. She says, I do have to admit I'm staying single out of fear. Thanks for your response. I would add an addendum to that and say, learn to live single out of love, right? Learn to live single out of love rather than, okay, I'm staying single because I'm fearful. Now I'm going to go find this. Look for it in you first, because it is in there. You just have to chip away all the stuff that happened. And there was a story I heard years ago where they were talking about this guy, and he comes along and he's walking on the road, and all of a sudden he has this thought. And this thought is, oh, wow, those people are so much better off than me. And all of a sudden, like, this boulder falls from the sky right in front of him. And he's like, what the hell? Why the hell did this boulder fall? Freaking boulder. These boulders are out to get me. Boom, another one falls. And every time he has a bad thought that's out of fear and out of I want and I desire and ego, the boulder falls. And pretty soon he finds himself in this cage of boulders. And he can't even see out. It's dark in there. He's withered away and his body's just like weak. And he's sitting in there and he's like, man, I wish someone would help me. And he's like, how could someone help me? Why wouldn't anyone? I'm just terrible. I'm horrible. No one's going to love me. I'm this way. And he's in this cage and he doesn't realize that this cage was made by himself. And in his cage, he sees the world outside as they don't love me. They don't help me. They don't want me. But all of a sudden he's walking by and someone's walking by and he can hear him walking by. He's like, man, they live free. They're so happy. And he puts a finger out and he's like, man, can anyone see me? And then he finds out that some guy sees him and he's like, hey, there's a guy in here. Let's help him out. They start taking the boulders out, start taking everything away. A guy has to carry him out because he's so feeble and weak, trying to protect his ego and everything. And finally he realizes that all these people banded together to help him get out. They actually did love him the whole time. They actually did care the whole time. But because he was living in fear, it put all those rocks around him and he was unable to see out. He couldn't even see the sun. He couldn't feel what it was like to feel in the moment because he was so fearful. And that's what we have in alcohol meetings. Like you could throw a big book, which you probably shouldn't. You could throw your book and you're going to hit someone who had a bad past. You're going to hit someone that had something bad that caused them to feel and live out of fear. And we don't have to be that way anymore, which is cool.
Yes,
okay. Richard says, I found it's too expensive to have a girlfriend, but I'm also a cheap person. Well, you're finding the wrong ones. Find one who doesn't care about things. Find someone who likes you for you. And you can do whatever you want. Again, that's a society thing. You have to get her flowers. You got to get her this. You have to get her a ring. My wife and I, we don't wear rings. I just don't care for rings. And when I stopped wearing mine, I was like, I don't care about them. She stopped too. She wears other ones, but I don't care about that. Like I don't need something to tell me that I love someone enough. I don't need a fancy $30,000 ring to say I love you. Right? I could say I love you with words. These things used to be free, but unfortunately marketers, which I'm guilty of being one, made it to where you feel like, hey, I do need that. Which that's kind of the essence of marketing, is creating a desire in someone. So hopefully
I'm a chef, and I work with my hands, so I got the old $21 stainless steel ring.
There you go. You got it. Otherwise, I just didn't like it getting caught on things. And I remember when we were young, we didn't have any money. And I was like, well, why do people care about it? And actually now I look back and I'm like, I'm kind of glad we didn't have like a huge wedding, because to what end? Like spend $50,000 to have a big celebration that, like, for what? We're celebrating the wrong thing. So many people focus on the wedding and they forget about life. And so many people are focusing on one thing. You're focusing on one little thing. And we're programmed from the time we are born, got to get through the year because we're going to get to Christmas so we can get some stuff. Then we're going to get to birthday. We're going to get some stuff. We're going to go to the prom and we're going to have a good time. And that's what it is. And we spend all of our life living to these moments. And then when we're in the moment, we're so fearful that it's not going to be perfect. We're not actually living in the moment, so we don't actually experience it. When in fact, if I was like, let's go have a prom right now, or let's go have prom's coming up for my kids, if you haven't noticed, talking about it all the time. Let's have that moment, and we're not really there. Like you could go out and dance in the backyard in old work shorts and have a better time because you're actually there. Right. And if we practice actually being here, actually taking in the moment and saying, hey, right now I'm okay. I don't really need anything, and then you'll see it in your own life. You'll watch a commercial. You'll be like, well, I just bought a new car, but man, that new Cadillac, I mean, those seats heat up. My seats are cold. I need to get that. And it's like, you live 50 years without heated seats. You're probably going to be fine. You live in Florida. If you have heated seats, you're probably going to catch on fire. But, I need to have them, So we got to look at that in our own life because those things creep in. And that is the idea of laughing at what we get wrapped up into.
Right.
Saying, yeah, I totally thought I had to have this to be this. And I don't. I can be this anyway. All right, let's take a couple others here.
Sure. Jason says, I think it comes down to fear and false sense of control we have in our life. I think that everyone says to drink to control anxiety. It does the opposite. And yeah, we've talked about that a lot in past webinars that drinking, it does the opposite of controlling the anxiety. It may control it temporarily, and then it comes back usually the next day or a few hours later, even stronger, and then you have to drink more to control it again, and it just starts that giant spiral. And yeah, fear and false sense of control. I know that I can only control what I can control, and that the rest of the world it's happening. I'm part of it. That's it. And it's really a relief to know that's all I can do. That I can't control what other people are thinking, what they're saying, what they're doing, but I can control what I am saying and doing and can do. So that's yeah. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Crystal's here was kind of interesting. She said, I had a bad day yesterday. Called my sponsor and gave some great advice. You only have one life. Do you want to be present or do you want to be drunk all the time and miss memories being made? And that's true, right? You got to look at it and say, I'm going to live my life today and I'm going to take what I have. And for those that deal with loneliness, or I know there was someone else who was like, I don't feel like I'll ever get it, because he said, I love the bachelor life, but I desire intimacy. Also, I don't want to feel rejection and hurt again. What I would say to that is, this is a big world. For some reason, and I think it happens in school, when we go to school and we're like, we have this small portion of guys and girls to choose from, right? And we're like, okay, I got to choose from this little pool because this is what I have. And we're preconditioned in life that this is our little group. This is where we're at. Thankfully, with the internet, we found that the world's big. And we found that there's like 8 billion people on the earth. And I guarantee there's one out there that is what you're looking for. And you probably won't have to deal with rejection and hurt with them. It's a big world. And oftentimes we get really closed in our world. And we're like, this is what we have. I go to the liquor store here. I go to work here. And I come home. And it's very lonely. And, you know, where do we meet women or where do we meet guys? Well, they're everywhere. They literally ever go to the grocery market. Give a smile. Talk to someone, get engaged in someone's life, and don't focus on, I want to meet this person because I want to date them, although, you know, you got feelings and emotions and things, and that's cool. But don't look at it that way. Look at it as, hey, I'm going to meet this person because this is a cool person to meet. I'd like to get to know them because they're really cool. And look at it from that rather than what can I get out of it. And instead of sucking from life, focus on what can I give to life. Right, and as an alcoholic, you totally suck from life, and suck at life. Right? When I was an alcoholic, I sucked at life, and I tried to get from life rather than saying, what can I give? Can I be open? Can I help this person? Oh, well, you know, I can't do that. I make this much money an hour, and that's going to waste. So what? What's a couple of dollars worth spending time with someone? What's a couple of, what's being late to something versus spending time with someone who needs it or who wants it or whatever it is. And I think you'll find your life starts to change when you stop taking from life and start giving to and start saying, hey, how can I be open? How can I help this person? You know, how can I spend time with them or whatever it is? Okay, let's see. Holistic Health Life Wellness Coach Martine says, right now there's no help for me. Well, I think there is help for you. I think you're probably like the guy with the rocks, and you have the rocks built around you. And Terry and I and other people are reaching out saying, look, there is help. But you have to be willing to put your finger out of the rocks or put your hand out of the rocks and say, hey, pick me up, man. You know, and look for people who have been there. Like, I've been in the pits of anxiety. I've been in the pits of alcoholism where I thought there was no way out. And I was going to provide a way out, which was ending my life. And that was the only way I saw at the point. But luckily, the way that things worked out, someone came along and was like, hey, there's another way. There's a way out. And there's a way that you might not see right now.
Right.
That is right there. Like, it's literally right, it's so close you can taste it. And you got to look at it and say, it's a shift in mind. It's a shift in mind in saying, right now where I'm at, everything can change and nothing can change. Everything can change in my mind and nothing can change externally, and I can be happy. Right? But if you're looking at everything else and you're like, I wish I had, I wish I was, I wish I could stop drinking. Well, the solution is to find something to replace that with. Go meet people. Go tell people, I can't drink. Go to wherever your favorite bar is, and when she's like, hey, here's your favorite drink, because they always have it ready for you, because alcoholics are usually good tippers, and they got it ready for you. And say, hey, no, you know what? That's the first thing I did. I went to my favorite place, and I got a hamburger, and I was like, no, you can give that to someone else. I don't drink anymore. And it was freeing to say that, because it's like, so what? And I'm sitting here thinking about what a bartender cares about me. Like, really? Marcus, what have you done with your life? I used to think, I'm going to go to different liquor stores because I don't want this guy to know I'm an alcoholic. And it's like, well, Marcus, you're walking in the freaking place sideways with one shoe on. Right. I think he knows you're an alcoholic. And even if he does or doesn't, who gives a shit? In the grand scheme of things, does it matter? Right? I used to think it was going to be difficult to tell everyone that knew about my business stuff that I was an alcoholic. I actually found they were way more supportive than I ever thought they would be, which was cool.
Yeah.
All right. We got time for a couple more, or how we doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
THC says, spending my Valentine's Day with Mary Jane, a.k.a. marijuana. Sorry, Marcus. I know this is an alcohol channel. And, hey, if that's what works for you, fine. Me, I drink coffee. But
I have my pipe.
I'm not going to risk it. I'm an alcoholic, and everything that I understand is that means I'm addicted to everything. Mm-hmm. And so that's the way I choose to go through life, is understand that, and I stay away from everything. I'm not going to test it out. I don't want to go down that road. I've seen it too many times where somebody has done one thing and it pushed them back into alcohol or back into whatever their choice substance was. So for me, no. But yeah, go ahead.
Lynn has an interesting one. She says, I agree there's a way out, but what if you tend to replace the drinking with another negative coping mechanism, addiction? You got to look for that in your life and kind of pick your battles. In the beginning, I replaced it with smoking cigars, and I had like 5 a day, that's not good for anyone. Now I try to just have my pipe throughout the day, which this one doesn't want to stay lit. And I only smoke tobacco pipes. I think I got some kind of Daughters and Ryan something or other today. But sometimes in the beginning, it was okay for me to substitute for the cigars because the cigars didn't warp my thoughts like alcohol did. So it was like, okay, maybe you need something to hold. Maybe you need something. I know for me, if I don't have my pipe, I will eat pens. I chew pens, pencils, just like to the bone. But I would focus on your thought process and maybe focus on being okay without anything. Just be like, what's it going to be like if I spend a day without a cigarette or without this thing that I think that I need? And be very careful. I remember one time I would take the Advil PMs for sleep, and I was like, okay, is this an issue? And I was very sensitive to it, and I'm like, okay, it's not an issue because I take them like once a week or whatever. But, you got to watch for things like that. As an addict, you got to watch and say, is this an issue? You got to always check yourself. Lynn said, okay, so Lynn's shedding light on that. I have an eating disorder, and when I stop drinking, my eating disorder kicks into high gear. I would focus and maybe read some books on mindful eating, and maybe if it's like an overeating thing, focus on mindful eating, focus on slowing down, focus on drinking a lot of water when you eat. Different things like that will start to change the way that you are and change the way that you think about these things, because we're looking to fill something. And what we got to find out is, hey, you're already full. You're just living out of fear. And if you cast the fear aside and say, hey, this is just me. I'm okay to be with me. I don't need to eat. I don't need to watch TV. I don't need to do anything. Lynn, with anorexia, I would definitely go to a doctor. because that can be very dangerous. I dealt with, I don't want to call it that, but I kind of like starved myself when I was in my 20s due to food abuse in the past. So you definitely want to check out, go to a doctor.
Yeah.
Because they could be dangerous. Even overeating can be dangerous. Alcohol could be dangerous. If you're detoxing, see a doctor about it, and go to a support group. And, go to the support group for people that struggle with that has like a bunch of good food. Maybe they have like a potluck group and, start to enjoy eating. Be mindful about it. Because I remember I used to I eat because I have to. That's what you got to get fuel. And then I started cooking and I found out, hey, food can actually taste good. This is cool. And I started to enjoy it. And I look at it as a process. Like for me, cooking's like a ritual. It's like they have friends over and I'm cooking all day and it's part of the process. And we go through this and I enjoy the whole process. And I enjoy eating it. And we got to look at it from a different way. And V says, I hate Valentine, just hate it. Well, it doesn't have to be Valentine's Day. Just because there's balloons and hearts and stupid crap on TV, watch a different channel. Go to a different place, it doesn't matter. Like I've had times where it's like, hey, Christmas is just us this year and we're just hanging out, or we'll just go to Disneyland or something,
Right.
and ignore it, and it's just a made up thing. Just one day versus another day. It's a way to sell stuff, really.
Yeah.
So they did good. I mean, they definitely sell a lot of shit
Sure.
that people don't need. So yeah,
I bought roses. I
I
bought
need
2 dozen
to.
roses for $20. How's that for a good deal,
That's
huh?
in the Bay Area. That's a great deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be like $48 or something
Yeah.
at least.
So
Um,
so Jason said, I'm very lucky to have a supportive woman in my life now. My ex-wife didn't want me to drink, but she drank 4 to 5 times a week, which made it hard to stop. Not blaming her, but not a good place for me. And yeah, my ex-wife drinks. I believe she probably drinks something like that. But the thing is she's able to control it, and it doesn't produce negative consequences in her life. And it did for me. My wife now, she enjoys a glass of wine um, many nights of the week. She usually drinks half of it, which I can never understand, and dumps out the other half because I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, why would you not finish a glass of wine? But it doesn't produce any negative consequences for her. And she was very cautious when I first got sober. Um, to She actually didn't have any alcohol in the house at all because she can go without alcohol for extended periods of time. But then I learned that I'm okay with it being in the house, and that's what she has a glass of wine, and she doesn't leave the wine bottle sitting on the counter. She puts it up in the cabinet, so it's out of sight, out of mind for me. But
mhm,
she's able to do it. But I totally understand. Some people definitely. I know alcoholics that they have decades of sobriety and they still refuse to have any alcohol in their house. And I know other alcoholics that same situation, only they have a full bar in their house because they
mhm.
entertain a lot. Just to really, it's something that you have to try to figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah. Crystal says, Marcus, my letters stop coming after 5 and I'm on disability. I can't afford your channel. We have a service where you guys can get like private calls and letters and all kinds of things. If you're interested in that and you can afford it, go to talksober.com, click on support the channel. If you can't afford it, go and do like Crystal did and just reach out to us on the channel, on the site at talksober.com, and you can have it free if you really can't afford it. I don't want that to stop you from getting sober, so we'll give that to you, which is cool. So yeah, do that. Also, for V, who says he hates Valentine's Day, one thing you guys can do, which is a good practice, which will make you feel good about yourself, which it does for me, is do random acts of kindness for people. Like if you're sitting there and you're like, I have no one to get anything for Valentine's, go buy a dozen roses. When you pay for it, take one out, give it to the lady who took the money for the roses, then go find 11 other people to give it to. Just random people, be like, hey, I appreciate you. Here's a rose today. And don't expect anything in return. Like giving without expecting in return is like one of the biggest self-esteem boosters you'll ever have, right? And it literally will cost you $12, or if you're where Terry lives, you can get 24 for 20, which is like, you get a smile out of people for 75 cents. That's a pretty good deal. And you can do that, right? Do that. Like, practice that today. Go get some roses, give one away, or all of them away, or whatever it is. And focus on that, because you can be the change you want to see in the world. As Gandhi, I think it was, said, be the change you want to see in the world. So yeah, very, very cool. Okay, Lynn says, I know the live stream is wrapping up soon, so I just want to say that this was my first time here, and I've already enjoyed chatting with you guys. Awesome. Look forward to seeing you. We're here every week, Thursday at 11. I think we are starting a members-only meeting kind of thing in our Talk Sober. So if you do want to be part of that, if you can afford it, click on support the channel. That's what helps us keep everything going. Other than that, it's just coming out of one of my businesses. But if you guys do want to support it, you can do that, because I really want to use this, and I know Terry's heart is to reach a lot of people with this stuff, because I know a lot of people are living in the cage of rocks and they don't see a way out. And we found a way out, which works, and hopefully it's helping you guys, which is cool. All right. V liked that idea. Go do that. I want to hear your guys' stories of how the giving away the flowers went next week. And if you can't afford flowers, give away a compliment, which is cool. All right. So
door open.
Yes, absolutely. Any last-minute thoughts, concerns, questions, type them in the box. Terry, if you have a last-minute word of wisdom for us, let us know.
Oh boy. Well, what I said in the beginning is isolation can be a problem in sobriety, well, and obviously in drinking. And just try to stay busy. Try to get out there and say hi. It's not something that's difficult to do, although it can be for some people, especially if anxiety is a big problem. But just try to do it slowly. Try to take life easy. And there you go. I think that about wraps it up. But loneliness and isolation, watch out for it. Just try to be aware of it.
I would also remember one other thing, because a lot of times we get to a point in life where we're like, wow, I'm just sideways. I'm not doing good. I don't know if I can make it. And always tell yourself, you've made it this far. Like, it's gotten as bad as it'll probably get. Like, for me, being on suicide watch, in a mental institute, having no house to go to because I sold my house drunk, ending up in a rehab, not knowing if I'm going to live in California or Florida, not knowing if the house I bought in Florida and actually paid a big down payment on is mine anymore, which it wasn't. And then I was like, well, shit, I made it through all that. I think I'm going to be okay. Like, I think I'll be okay. And everything can always be okay if you want it to be. Always. It can always be okay. And you can not drink, and that'll be okay. And you can tell people you're an alcoholic if you want to, and that'll be okay. And you can live your life the way you want and be okay. Because I know that right now, we're going to be all right. We're sitting here. Most of us are comfortable. Most of us have our heater or air conditioner, depending on where you're living. We have food. We're going to be okay. So, enjoy today. Love, live, be happy, do gratitude, and we'll see you next week. And go to talksober.com, and if you want to support the channel, click the button. If you can't afford it, go over there and tell us you can't, and we'll get you a free subscription to it. And let's all stay sober and live the best we can. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week, guys.
Thank you, everybody.